Hello, so this is a video about the PolyD. I've been playing it wrong. I think I've been playing it wrong, and I'd like to sort of describe how I think, well, how I want to be playing it, and I'd sort of share their thoughts. This is actually a sort of prelude video, because I've been also playing with the Model D to make a kind of sample instrument, which was, in my mind, was to get me closer to the sort of PolyD experience that was in my brain versus the actual experience of the PolyD. So let me try and explain my thoughts. So the PolyD is a 4-voice analog synth, very much a recreation of a classic Moog synthesizer. So these are the 4 voices. We got this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. And we can set the voices to different shapes, different oscillators, and different octaves. Okay, which is both good and bad, but I'll explain. The thing to remember with the PolyD is we've only got one amp envelope and also just essentially one filter envelope. So obviously what the little brain inside the synthesizer needs to do is it says, well, if you're playing one note, right, okay, great, I'll play oscillator 1, that's fine. But if you're then triggering a new note, it's then got to decide, do I then, kill the envelope and just play oscillator 1 again? Oh, but I've got 2 oscillators, so that's fine. So I can enlist oscillator number 2. And if I play a third note, it then goes, okay, well, I'll enlist oscillator number 3. If I play a fourth note, great, I'll enlist oscillator number 4. But obviously, and it's got to think, does it re-trigger the envelope, and how does it handle the filter envelope? Okay. Now, if I was setting this up as a mono synth, which we can do with this button here, and also if I was using the Model D, which is just a monophonic synth, so I can only play one note at a time, which we can hear. So if I try and do the same thing, right, I can't trigger another note, right, because it's a monophonic synth. I mean, I get I get 3 different oscillators playing at the same time. Awesome. But that's obviously slightly different from the sort of polyphony situation over here. So although they're sort of similar instruments, kind of different, well, to me, they kind of need a slightly different mindset. So to help explain my thought process, I've enlisted the help of many sweeties. So let's imagine, so as I said, so the PolyD, 4 voices, and we have 4 note voice polyphony. So let's say oscillator 1, let's set that to a triangle wave, which we will represent with a chocolate button. Dairy milk, forked out for the good ones. That's off, 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 on. So that sounds like this. And we can see just that's oscillator 1's lit up. Let's turn that off. Oscillator 2, let's set that to the next shape along, which is the kind of triangle sawtooth kind of combo. Let's represent that with a fruit jelly. Okay, so this is 2. I'll put it in mono mode so we can hear voice 2. Yeah. So we're just hearing the oscillator 2. And to distinguish it from the triangle, let's take it up the octave. Okay, so that's our fruit jelly. Let's turn that off. Let's voice oscillator 3. let's set that to the sawtooth, which we will represent with a gummy bear. Well, Haribo obviously couldn't afford to pay the copyright on gummy bears, so they're called golden bears in this country. So that's our voice 3 gummy bear. Okay, which sounds like this. And remember, it's just one. You know, we can't play chords with this because we're just going for the one voice alone, the voice number 3, the gummy bear voice. And finally, turn that off. Oscillator 4, which we will represent with this delicious soft licorice. There we go. And we'll use the square wave for voice 4. Turn the other voices off, and we'll put this down the octave. So if I was setting this up as like if it was a model D, what I might want to do is like use all the different sort of flavors of the 3 oscillators, or in this case, the 4 oscillators in the mono mode to build a nice thick sounding sort of mono synth line, which we can do because we can turn them on. Lovely. Now, the problem comes when I put that in poly mode and then I want to sort of play it, you know, take use of the polyphony of this instrument. It kind of sounds a bit crazy because what's happening is you go and I play one note, oscillator 1 sounds. I play then a second note, oscillator 2 is firing, which is a different shape and a different octave. And then and then I do another note, and oscillator 3 kicks in, and then a 4th note, and then oscillator 4 kicks in. And they all have like different sort of octaves, different oscillator shapes. And it just sounds absolutely, you know, I mean, it depends what the sort of the application is, but kind of sounds a bit crazy to my ears. Because the octaves are like shooting all over the place, different voices, and it's what it's the equivalent of. It's the equivalent of me putting all 4 of these sweets in my mouth. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. Now, obviously, yeah, that's exactly the sound I want, Mark. What are you on about? I want to play an F minor chord and all the octaves to jump around the place. That's exactly what I want. But in my mind, that's not what I want. So, what I would suggest is, well, this is the way that I think I should be using this particular instrument, is then basically saying I want it in poly mode. I want to play like nice fat analog chords. But basically, I want to take all my voices to be the same oscillator shape. Let's do triangle wave, which is basically 4 chocolate buttons. Set them all to the same octave in poly mode, all turned on, and for me this makes much more sense. That's just like eating a load of chocolate buttons. Delicious. Or of course, we could set them all to a square wave. Let's come down the octave. Which is then the equivalent of me eating just licorice, just a handful of licorice. Like that. It is fine. It's not my favourite sweet. It's not a salty one either. It's like fairly acceptable licorice. I know doing the sort of prep for, well, it's actually the prep for my next video where we're going to make a sample instrument using the Model D. But as prep for that, I was, sort of playing the Poly D, and, this was the main sort of thing that occurred to me, because, you're setting up different things. So for a mono patch, you might want a stacked kind of sound, different oscillator shapes, different octaves. But for a poly kind of scenario where you're just playing chords, you maybe don't want that. Or you do. I mean, I don't think, I think obviously, different people use their instruments differently. But I just thought that was interesting. I just thought I'd share that thought with you. If that's useful, happy days. If it's not, whatever. All right. See you in the next video. Ta-ra. Bye, 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 bye. Oh,